Hello fleet, and well, it's another Monday, which means another Monday Rules Challenge. But before I get to this week's challenge, let me first announce the winner from last week's challenge, which some of you might still remember as the Furutaka Firing AP Only Challenge. And the winner for last week's challenge is soramirez from the EU server. And Sora made a very interesting note in their email to me, which is they noticed after the challenge itself just how powerful the Furutaka really was when it came to firing AP and hitting the citadels, and they didn't realize just how great citadel potential this particular ship had until they tried it. So Sora, I'm very happy that you've actually found the hidden potential and the hidden power with this ship that a lot of people don't realize. And of course also I will be sending you some doubloons, so keep your eye open on those emails. Alright, so let's take a look at this actual battle. First up is a Kuma. Now the Kuma is one of those ships at tier 4 where a lot of people don't really realize how easy it is to get killed, and that's because the Kuma has a massive citadel hitbox under all those smokestacks, which means that with something like a Furutaka and its 203mm guns, if you can hit the citadels, you can kill off a Kuma extremely quickly. Hell, I mean, the Kuma can get killed by other Kumas very efficiently too, and those only have 140mm guns. So when you're factoring 203mm armor piercing into the citadel, the damage is absolutely tremendous, because in the Furutaka's case, each citadel hit takes off 4700 HP, and as you can see, that Kuma just took 3 citadel hits and the HP just vanishes. And so that's one of the things that if you have Furutaka, you have to be aware of. The Furutaka is an amazing cruiser at this tier, especially when dealing with other cruisers, as you're able to wipe off HP in a ridiculously short period of time. Yes, it doesn't have the rate of fire. I know it's not an Omaha, you can't just sit there and spam shells all day, but if you can aim and you can hit those citadels, the pain that you can cause to other cruisers at this particular tier is absolutely phenomenal, as you'd be very easily, in a lot of cases, be wiping off something like a third to half of the cruiser's HP in one salvo, which means that while an Omaha has to sit there and spam shell after shell after shell, a Furutaka that hits the citadels reliably can essentially end the battle within 2 salvos, which gives this particular ship at this particular tier a phenomenal amount of power. So there's an Omaha over there. There's actually an Omaha, and Sora is shooting at this particular Omaha, and you will see just that Omaha already lost, by the way, I think something like close to half its HP in one salvo. Look at that. One hit and another substantial chunk of HP vanishes. And even the Omaha, which a lot of people like, has a really large citadel hitbox as well. I mean, if you think that the Kuma has a pretty big citadel hitbox under all the smokestacks, look at the number of smokestacks and that area underneath that on the Omaha. It's a huge chunk of space. And of course, with that much space, being a citadel means if you shoot AP reliably into that area, you are going to kill things very quickly. These couple of shots, however, Sora did shoot a little bit high. As you can see that the impact area was closer to where the deck was, but once you get it down to where the waterline is, another kill. So yeah, that's the thing about the Furutaka. If you're shooting HE with a Furutaka, you're going to get very frustrated, because this ship is not designed to be firing high explosive ammunition. It's not an Omaha, it's not like the American cruiser, it's not the Kuma. You can't really shoot HE in a Furutaka and expect to do well. You have to use armor piercing, and you have to know how to use armor piercing well. So after that initial fight between Sora and a couple of cruisers, Sora's already managed 8 citadel hits and 10 regular target hits, and has sunk himself 1 ship already. Mind you, that Kuma, however, is also extremely damaged, having only, I think, 1,300 something HP by the time it was able to slip away. So yeah, very good performance so far. However, if you look at the map, right now, Sora's team is definitely more on the defensive. The enemy team seems to be pushing in hard. Not only that, but Sora's team doesn't really have its battleships in any sort of concentrated area. One is over here with Sora, and the other one is all the way on the far side at around H2. So this is going to pose a problem, because if you look at the map right now, you can already see that the enemy team's battleships are actually formed up relatively close together. In fact, 3 of their battleships are right around the E3, E4, F3, F4 area. That's a nice block of power, and of course very, very difficult to kill when battleships are concentrated. But, of course, that's none of Sora's concern right now, because his concern right now, of course, is the ship that's in front of him, which is that Kuma. And that Kuma is coming back for round 2, but, of course, with only 1,300 health, the minute that the 203mm shells get a penetration, it's all over. Ooh, looky here, another Kuma, and another Kuma showing its broadside, which means, oh yeah, more Citadel hits. There's another one. Oh, yeah, there's another one. Ooh, yeah, look at that. I mean, 2 Citadel hits, and watch where that Kuma's HP has vanished to. And that's one of the real strengths of this particular ship, and that's why I think the Furutaka is amazing. And don't forget, in patch 4.1, it's actually getting a buff, which is like, whoa, okay. I mean, the one flaw right now, honestly, with the Furutaka is the fact that its guns traverse extremely slowly. So, you know, once you've turned your ship around, you're sitting there like kind of twiddling your thumbs and going, wait a minute, come on, guns, turn yourself around now. And that's really one of the Furutaka's main weaknesses in the current patch, because the guns just take forever to actually get turned around. So if you ever have to turn your ship around to maneuver anything, yeah, it's gonna turn into quite an annoying thing afterwards to try to get your guns back onto target. However, with that 4.1 buff that's coming for the Furutaka, the turret traverse speed is going to improve, so definitely expect the people who know how to play this ship well now to turn into an absolute terror when the buff actually hits. Oh yeah, it's also getting a torpedo range buff too, but torpedo range, not that important when you know how to Citadel like a madman. In this particular engagement, just want you to focus on one thing. Have you noticed that Sora really hasn't been, you know, super well angled? In fact, Sora's kind of showed that Citadel area at times to that Kuma. But because that Kuma is firing HE, the damage done by that Kuma to Sora's ship is minimal. But on the flip side, every time Sora fires a shot into that Citadel area for the Kuma, just watch the amount of HP that gets melted off. The Kuma does actually switch eventually to AP, but by then, not really that useful because Sora had already turned into a very angled kind of position, and most of the shells are going to bounce. That's another thing actually about the Furutaka, and I'm not sure if anybody noticed when they were playing it, is that if you angle the Furutaka, the armor is actually pretty trollish. I mean, you can bounce. I mean, I've been able to bounce everything up to 12-inch battleship shells, so, you know, the Furutaka's armor there's another one of its traits that a lot of people don't realize. Don't expose your Citadel area, but the rest of the ship, if you can angle it, troll armor, absolutely. Anyway, so, for Sora here, if you look at the map, things are not going too well. Enemy battleships have definitely pushed through and are advancing on the cap, and this is actually going to be a pretty difficult fight for Sora because the Furutaka, while it's great against cruisers, it's okay, it's playable against battleships on a one-on-one scenario, but it's not good when there's massed amounts of battleships. And the reason why the Furutaka isn't great when it's up against masses of battleships is because you can't angle to every single battleship. Yes, you can angle on one, but another one is going to have a bead onto your Citadel area, which means that typically speaking, the Furutaka should not be engaging battleships. But of course, there's always, you know, what you shouldn't do and, well, what you have to do because necessity dictates it. And in this particular case, these 2 South Carolinas are going to be moving into the cap. So Sora really doesn't have much of a choice but to get in there and engage and hope for as many resets as possible and hope that the destroyer that's gone north for his own team is going to get into the enemy cap and hopefully be able to cap this battle out. Now, the Furutaka does have a reasonably decent chance against South Carolinas, and that's because, again, the 203mm guns are capable of penning battleship armor, but the sort of condition for that to happen is that you do have to be relatively close. If you're shooting AP at a battleship that is reasonably angled to you, most likely what's going to happen is you're going to bounce, even against tier 3 battleships. However, if you can get into a good position where you're not too far away from a battleship, you can definitely pen them. And not only can you pen them, you can actually Citadel certain battleships. The American battleships I think are a little bit harder because I do think the US battleships have slightly better armor. But against the Japanese battleships, for example, certainly doable. But in this particular case, the good thing is that what Sora is going for is just really just keeping these battleships reset. And as you can see, he switches targets from one South Carolina to another to knock off the cap points that the ships have. The destroyer on Sora's team has actually managed to make it to the enemy base and has actually started to cap and has already capped a substantial amount. So as long as Sora and the remaining battleship on his team down here defending cap can keep resetting the points on these enemy battleships, they've got a pretty good chance of actually winning this from cap. Although right there, if you look on the map, there is an enemy cruiser heading towards the enemy's own base in order to maybe get a reset on the destroyer, maybe just to outright kill the destroyer. At this particular time, if you look at what the destroyer seems to be doing, it appears that the destroyer is going for a bit of a hide kind of thing, like he's trying to stay hidden behind an island. That works if the ships are really far away and you're dealing with battleships and stuff and they can't get a direct line of sight onto you. But against a cruiser, that destroyer strat I don't think was that perfect, to be honest. I think it would have been better to try to just stay stealthed and hidden on the far edge of the map, and then just sort of continue to push torpedoes down range to try to get the cruiser that's coming towards you to turn away from you. I think that would be the smart thing to do, but it looks like if you look on the map that the cruiser is basically closing the range and the destroyer is certainly in a bit of trouble. Back to Sora's fight with the battleships. One of the South Carolinas has now gotten within 7.5 kilometers of Sora's Furutaka. At this particular range, and range is sort of going down from there, 6 kilometers, whatever, the Furutaka's 203mm guns are really going to be able to put a hurt on these battleships, and that's because the armor piercing is going to be able to start doing actual penetration damage. So no longer bounces or overpens, it's going to actually able to penetrate and do damage. And as you can see, one shell there did something like 2,000. So of course, if you're able to land a couple, the damage is quite substantial, even if you don't hit the citadels. Now watch these AP salvos, as some of them do quite substantial damage. 3,000 with 2 hits. Those are actually very substantial hits. The one thing I've got to say is I think the enemy battleships do misplay the situation. Truth be told, they really needed one battleship to engage the battleship on Sora's team, while the other one engaged Sora, but they don't. Both of the battleships get, whether it's tunnel vision or whatnot, they focus on the battleship on Sora's team, and so Sora is able to sit here and really just sort of fire away with impunity and just chip away at these battleships' HP. As you can see there, 3 hits, 4,000 HP, there you go, and he finished them off. The one thing is that the closer a battleship gets to a cruiser like a Furutaka that's firing AP is that if you get closer, remember the AP penetration value for the cruiser increases, which means that if it had a problem penetrating your armor before at longer ranges, the closer you get, the less problem it's going to have penning your armor. And as you can see, most of these hits, excluding that one, which when you see 470 damage, means you've overpenned, but generally speaking, you'll see quite good amounts of damage come out every time there's actually a penetration. 3 hits, 2,500 almost. And there we go. Threat neutralized, and actually maybe not. One more Myogi. Now, this Myogi, which in its current near, I guess 3/4 HP, is a bit scary for Furutaka. But of course, if those torpedoes connect, then things should become a little bit easier. The battleship Myogi, however, does have its flaws. It is more of a battle cruiser than an actual battleship, which means that its armor isn't that great, and at even further ranges than a South Carolina, not only can a Furutaka pen armor, but the Furutaka can actually do citadel hits, assuming of course the battleship is not angled. In that particular case, the battleship was angled, so most of the hits actually bounced. By now, if you look at the number of citadel hits, Sora's already managed 11, has already got a ton of other hits under his belt, and remember, if you can get penetrating hits, they can still do damage. There goes, there's 3,000 damage. Myogi is in a lot of trouble, and it doesn't really have a lot of HP to survive. They have managed to kill off the battleship on Sora's team, but the Myogi is no longer much of a threat, very easy to kill off either by Sora or by the carrier when it launches another strike. This last remaining Kuma has come all the way back from his own cap after resetting to try to help his team out. But again, we've seen it before, Kuma against Furutaka. Furutaka knowing how to use AP, very scary day for that Kuma, because the Citadel areas on that ship are just so large and so vulnerable, and a couple of Citadel hits is all it takes to kill off a Kuma. So as a Kuma captain, you've got to be very wary when going into a fight against the Furutaka. You really have to be careful, because that Furutaka can truly ruin your day in a very short period of time. Hell, I mean, even the penetrating hits, never mind the Citadel hits, even the penetrating hits can do over 1,500 damage, which is very damaging when you are in a cruiser. Of course, yeah, that Kuma committed cardinal sin number 1, exposing a broadside to a Furutaka, 2 Citadel hits, game's over. Finally, this Miyogi, oh god, just that poor Miyogi. This time, no HP left really. Yeah, just no HP, nothing really that Miyogi can do. Probably the most intelligent thing that the Miyogi could try at that particular time is maybe stay hidden behind this island, wait for an HP heal to come back, maybe try to recover some HP. That could be something that they could try. Otherwise, oh man, I would say maybe just come out very angled as possible, so that the Furutaka won't get a broadside hit into you. Stay angled, and then maybe try to just use your forward guns and use AP to try to hit stuff. But in this particular case, really nothing is viable, because the carrier has torpedo bombers, and the torpedo bombers are going for that Miyogi. So this battle is pretty much over. So good job, Sora. 13 Citadel hits, 73 regular target hits, 1 high caliber medal, 5 ships sunk, because Sora is going to get this Miyogi, is fantastic work when you are in a Furutaka. And I'm hopeful that everybody who has watched this replay, and even you, Sora, now understand that the Furutaka really has very good damage output potential because of the AP and the Citadel hits. Last salvo on the Miyogi, another Citadel, game, set, match. And this is what Sora ended with: 218,000 credits, 2,143 experience, high caliber, Confederate, 74 target hits, 14 Citadel hits, 5 ships sunk, which is absolutely phenomenal. And in terms of damage, let's take a look here, almost 100,000 damage in a tier 5 ship. Congratulations, Sora, on winning this Monday Rules Challenge. Enjoy the doubloons, and fantastic work in your Furutaka. And of course, let me present to you the new Monday Rules Challenge for this week. So it's an AA challenge, so that's pretty simple. Support your team with anti-aircraft fire. Scout fighters and defensive fire are okay. Premium consumables for these ones are okay as well. Remember, cruisers only, so no carriers, and of course the winning criteria is how many planes you shoot down. Instructions on how to send your replays and your screenshots to me are in the video description below. Good luck on this challenge, and remember everybody, Monday rules.